Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of Strange Times Poetry Broadcast, coming to you live from the Poetry Bookshelf. For those of you who haven't tuned in before, I'm going to be reading 3 uplifting poems, one by a famous author. Today is going to be Charles Wright, one by a friend, Emily Rose, and one by myself. I would love if you could like our page so that you will know every time that we have a new poetry broadcast, hopefully every night at 8. And I hope to see you here in the future. All right. So today's theme is choice in time of uncertainty. For those of you who are celebrating Passover, there's a lot of thoughts going on right now about freedom and, plagues and all of that. And I come back to this one moment in the Passover dinner that I grew up with in my family, where we would read these different quotes about freedom by famous authors and politicians, etc., celebrities. And one quote that always stood out to me was that the concept of freedom is the ability to anticipate the future and make decisions about it. And we're in a really difficult time because there's so much unknown that it's very difficult to anticipate the future and it's difficult to make those decisions. So I've been thinking about that a lot, and that was sort of where this theme came from, this idea of how do you make choice in uncertainty when there's just so much unknown and there's no way to control it. And so the first poem that I'm going to read, which is Yard Work from Negative Blue by Charles Wright, sort of deals with this question of how do you delineate something that is infinite and invisible, and what do you do in that space in something that is invisible? How do you make boundaries? How do you live in a moment? And the magic of this poem is, like I said, how he makes the invisible absolute in the body of the poem. Yard work. I think that someone will remember us in another time, Sappho once said, more or less, her words caught between the tongue's tip and the first edge of the invisible. I hope so, myself now caught between the edge of the landscape and the absolute, which is the same place and the same sound that she made. Meanwhile, let's stick to business. Everything else does. The landscape, the absolute, the invisible. My job is yard work. I take this inchworm, for instance, and move it from here to there. So I love how he says that the invisible sticks to business. Invisible, intangible, and unknown, and yet it sticks to a schedule. And also just the very tiny movement of the inchworm from here to there in yard work. Something so simple, but it's what he's able to do. And I hope that we are finding those simple things that we are able to do in this time. If only just to breathe. All right. The next poem that I'm going to read is Unblues Number 1 by Emily Rose Cole. And she has a lovely chapbook called Love and the Loaded Gun, which you should definitely get from Minerva Rising, which is a small press. All the information is going to be in the description. And so in Unblues, there's sort of a rejection of the blues, of this upset feeling that the speaker has. And in some ways, it's like the maiden doth protest. It's very clear that something, even though this poem is fun and the language is delightful, it's very clear that something difficult is going on. And there's no, as much as you say, unblues, unchoose it, I'm not going to do it, it's still there. But where the speaker makes a choice is in attitude. And also, I think, in the joy of language, there's that sort of choice to make something out of it, to play with the language and to find joy in something that's difficult. And so sometimes when you can't make the choice whether or not you're with the blues, you can at least make the choice of how delightful you make it sound, how you live with it. All right. Unblues 1. I refuse this blues. I'm dropping my D string, changing the tune. I'm greasing my biscuits with jalapeno butter and dyeing this blues tangerine. 3 nips of food coloring sloshed and body shotted. I'm making this blues some friends. A dive bar of cockatiels, a switcheroo of garden snakes, a catastrophe of middle schoolers in whose mouth this blues liquefies to a luxuriant fondue. So much I could do to this blues. Unslither, unbleat, unlash, unreel, this blues magician's scarf from between my untethered toes. I unchoose this blues. Don't want it leashed around my shoulders, this boa studded with kingfisher claws. I refuse. I just love every moment of the language in this poem. The luxuriant fondue, delightful. Also, I love the idea of a catastrophe of middle schoolers. I imagine that many parents are experiencing that right now. All right. And my final poem is by myself, and it's called How to Kill a Pig. If you want to read more poems by me, check out The Evolution of Parasites from Sibling Rivalry Press. Not only does it have delightful poems, but it also has amazing drawings by my friend Robin Levine. Worth checking out, and another small press to support, that being Sibling Rivalry. So in this poem, the choice is a choice of ritual, using ritual to mourn and to let go. So it's a choice to take a difficult situation and emotionally difficult and embody it, make it physical, and use that to sort of let go, to choose to let go. And I think in general, one of the biggest choices that we can make now is to choose to let go of that which we cannot control. And that gives us some agency over what is unknown, is the choice to let go. How to Kill a Pig. The pig howls his throat bloody, baring his ribs just in time for the grandfather to find the right gap for a single cut. Death requires 5 minutes or half an hour, depending on the angle of the knife. I want to give this body away willingly. Let the ants run around in frantic circles. Let the polka peal as the pig's screech settles to a whistle. I sit in the chair and wait for the sun to bake joy back into me. I waited 3 months for you to leave your body, mourning each part. Your last day of hunger, the morning sight left, the lazy unraveling of your pre-cut brain. I mourned alone in another country where no one knew you. Now the grandfather slices off the head, sets it aside. Junior, Edgar, and the men truss the body from a grape awning. Scoring the throat, the chest, the grandfather cuts free a thick sail of skin. He lets it fall into the arms of each of his grandsons, kneeling below, ready, smiling. Hopefully you don't have a weak stomach. But yeah, this poem is about the choice to let go through ritual. And I hope you enjoyed. I hope you'll join me again, 8 p.m. tomorrow, for the next Strange Times Poetry broadcast. In the meantime, stay safe, stay sane, and good night. Bye!